Hello, and welcome to Raider HQ After Dark. I'm your host, Raider, and today I'm doing the third video in a series about basically an overview as to how the claims processing actually works at each individual phase. Today's video will be about rating. Now, I'm going to share my screen for another handy dandy visual aid that is so high tech, NASA is calling me for these. So let me go ahead and bring this up. And all right, today we're going to be talking about what I would consider the coolest people in the VSC, in the Veteran Service Center. The coolest individuals who are currently touching your claim for the most part. I mean, some of them are tool sheds, don't get me wrong, but this is where the magic happens, as they say. So, as I said before in previous videos, rating isn't that complex. So, potentially what happens is that once a claim finalizes development, it then either directly moves through pass-through to the rater at the local RO. So what would happen is we have this workload management tool where the VSR will put in the file number of the veteran, they'll put in the name of the veteran, the EP, the number of, like they'll put in all this information. And then what happens is that the rating authority, the coaches and the rating authority will then look through and see all the claims that the VSRs have put into that tool, and then they'll kind of hand pick out the ones that they want to do, maybe the ones that are advantageous, that are quick to do, easy to do, because not only do the VSRs, RVSRs, and authorizers and have a quality and production standard, each individual regional office has its own cumulative or collective quality and production standard. They have to get a certain number of completed claims a day. And it's not just completed claims, because you have two different types of claims in the rater division. You have partial rating claims, in which we can only rate some, none, or some of the contentions that are currently being reviewed, or we can rate them all. Now, the regional office only gets points for claims in which we can rate them all at the same time. And then effectively, when we're done rating, we would close the EP, the end product. Like sometimes you'll hear them EP020, EP110. Like if you've ever went to a VSO and looked up your claims beforehand, you'll kind of know what I'm talking about. But you have to close out your claim. That's how the regional office gets their points. So the quality and production rears its ugly head again to incentivize ROs to keep certain types of claims. And this comes back to other videos that I talked about, but if you can make your claim less complex to where it's a one-time go type situation, then the regional office in question is more likely to hold on to it to give it to the rater, which means that they will more likely than not hold on to it and give it to the authorization and promulgation, the next phase. So complexity is one of those things that really, really matters, but I'm kind of getting a little off topic here. So what happens is development, they use the workload management tool, and if they want to keep the claim because it looks like it's a one-time go, they'll do a pass-through method to hand it to the very cool decision makers, the raters, and then that gets put into a internal like queue, and then the coaches go and grab out claims. They get assigned claims based upon the last two digits of the claim ID, which is, it's kind of a randomly assigned number that has nothing to do with your social security number. So each team gets claims assigned based upon those last two terminal digits, we call it. And then the coaches from there will divvy out those claims to their respective raters. So that's kind of how things are assigned. Now the coaches will try to, do an even spread. They don't like to overwhelm one rater, and that's kind of a good thing. You should want them to do that because That way you're not having somebody that's so burnt out because they're doing 60 contention claims back to back to back that not only they're not getting their points, it incentivizes them to want to burn their quality in order to increase their production. So you got to kind of, the coaches have to feed the raters well. So maybe give them like a 2 contention claim here, a 10 contention claim here, and then a big one there. And also, the types of claims matter because you get different points for the types of claims. So if you have an appeal is worth more per contention than say a increase. An increase is worth the least amount of points because the VA sees it as requiring the least amount of work, even though it takes the rater the same amount of time to rate everything. It's kind of weird. I don't understand it, but so once the rater gets the claim, the thing that we do as the rater is, and I'll just kind of go over it in my head as to how I do it, is I start reviewing all the development that was done. I want to make sure that the claim is substantially complete. You filled out all the 526, all the boxes that need to be filled out for a condition or for a claim to be substantially complete. I go in and review to make sure, like on the code sheet and the narratives, to see if, whatever reason, the VSRs missed the fact that you filed it on the wrong form. So, and then I'll go through after I kind of do my task 11s. That's a quality review terminology. We have certain tasks that we can get errors on, like you didn't review that the examination was sufficient. You didn't review that all the documentations were done. All the documents were completed and signed appropriately. So we have this quality review checklist that we have to go through. So I do that, and then once I'm done with that, what happens is I go through and I start doing my evidence review for the narrative. So I have this template and I start filling in the template. What is the date that we received your DD 214? What are your service dates? What's the date that we received your STRs? And I have this fillable, Word document that I just go through and I just start reviewing it. And then once I do all my big ticket items like service, I start verifying all those things. Like verify that the service matches in VBMS and it matches on your DD214, and you don't have some kind of outstanding character of discharge review or something like that. So there's two different phases to rating. There's the evidence review to bring it up to current to can I rate everything in front of me? Because if I find that, like, let's say your form is insufficient for rating purposes, well, then I can't go any further. It's a go, no go type situation. So then I would defer back and say, hey, look, this entire claim is defunct. I can't rate it because, the form is incomplete. Can you please reach out to the veteran and see if we can get them to sign the form? So that's half the job of the rater is to review all the evidence. We're responsible for reviewing to make sure that all the development was done properly. Now, for those of you that follow the claim tracker and the different steps or stages, this is where we can get a lot of bounce back. Is the sometimes the raters are a little lazy and they'll come across the first thing that they can to defer a challenging claim back and they'll just stick with that. Rather than go through, do the due diligence like some of us do, find all of the issues and address them all at the same time. Now, does it take a lot longer? Yes, it does take a lot longer to do that. Do you get a crap ton less points for doing that diligence? Yes. You get only 0.31 points. Well, yeah, 0.25. I want to say 0.25. You get like 0.25 points for requesting a deferral with no actual exams. So 0.25 points for just sending it back and, saying, hey, look, I need you to do this thing. Versus I can get up to 2, 3 points, if I'm rating and doing exams and, so 0.25 points makes your claim not worth a lot. So that's why sometimes you'll have these raters that just go, "Oh, look, they didn't do the exam right, so I'm going to kick it back." And the likelihood of them getting an error for not finding everything is actually quite low. They QRT for whatever reason doesn't look at deferrals like that because they also top sheet and go, "Okay, was the action that the rater did was it right or wrong? Oh, it was right. Okay, but they don't do a full review of the claim. So that's how a lot of raters, you'll see them bounce. Like I'm guessing that you'll see your claim bounce back and forth from like step 7 to step, or I don't know. I honestly don't know anything about the steps, but I'll just do 5 to 2. Step 5, step 2, step 5, step 2, because they'll do the action. Development will dutifully do the action that the rater tells them to because it's directed development, and then they'll send it ready for a decision again, and it'll come back up to the rater, and then the rater will find something else, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the same rater. Like you can have people with different, I want to say, work ethics, come across, and they will, they'll find something else. Some people are also pretty good at finding certain things. Like, you know how individuals have niches? Raters are like that. Like, raters will find things that other raters won't because it's kind of their speciality. So, it's not always a bad thing that they didn't find it because reviewing all of development is sometimes kind of hard unless you're good at it. Now, this is why they say that it takes about 2 years for you to really get into the job. So, if you ever come across and you have access to your code sheets and you come across a rating decision that has at the bottom of it, it'll have a signature and then it'll have a second signature. That's how you know that you have a trainee that completed your rating. As somebody that's less than 6 months on the job. There's also other ways that you can kind of tell that you have somebody with less than 2 years of experience. And it honestly shows. So, raters with 2 years of experience are a hot mess. Like, they do the weirdest things. Because the training program for raters is horrible. The training program for VSRs is horrible. The training There is no training program for promulgation and authorization. It is a hands-on job PDF training. So you can only imagine like part of the reason why I have such disdain for promulgation and authorization as a function, not as a person, the process, not people. So anyway, back to rating. So what happens is if you so phase 1 is you're reviewing all the evidence, right? You're kind of documenting all the evidence so you can put it in to the rating decision or into the narrative. And that's where the evidence comes in. Now, I'm going to clear something up for everybody. It is not an error if I don't list every single piece of evidence that you submitted. So it's not an error for me. It's not a clear and unmistakable error that, like, well, they missed out on this. The way that you tell from how to tell if your evidence was not put before the examiner is you have to go to a VSO and have them pull up the exam request. The exam request has a list of every single piece of evidence that the examiner is allowed to look at pertaining to that specific contention, disability. So that is how you would tell whether or not your evidence was factually put before the examiner or not factually put before the examiner. So just because the rater didn't put it on the narrative has no bearing on whether or not it was accurately applied to your claim. It just may have to do with the fact that they're lazy, but it doesn't matter for the rating world that they did or did not put it on there. You just have to put something. If you put a DD214 on there, it passes quality reviews like you can't get an error for it. And they won't make you redo the rating narrative to put it on there. It's not probative. It doesn't prove or disprove anything if they can see that it was actually put before the examiner. So once the rating, so that's phase 1. Phase 2 is when we actually take the claim after doing the reviews in our core system called VBMS. That's the system that development does. So phase 1, we use VBMS. We kind of review the same stuff that the VSR reviewed to make sure that they did a good job. And then we move the claim over to what is known as VBMSR for rating. And VBMSR is a plug and play tool. So a lot of the notion that raters have this absolute authority and that we decide things. There's very few times that we decide anything. 95% of the time, the examiner decides whether or not your service connected. We just determine whether or not the laws were accurately applied or not. And when we do, what is it? When we do a rating decision, it is literally a check the box situation, you know, or it's a fill in the blank. So for like a spinal condition, it will go through each series of range of motions and the examiner will provide those numbers. We plug in those numbers. And then we plug in whether or not it's painful motion. We plug in whether or not you have guarding or, tenderness, abnormal gait. And then after that, we hit OK. And then the system, will tell us what to rate it at. It actually says, it doesn't give us an option to change it. Like if you plugged in everything correctly, it will spit out what the rating is, and it will blow that information the uh, into the rating narrative. Now there is an exception, and I want to do a video on this because I think it would actually do a lot of good for the veteran community. Mental health is the exception to which the rater has the ability to manually adjust your the number that the system kicks out. So if it says you should be 50, I have the option to manually adjust it to 70 or down to 30. I can go up one or down one. And all I have to do is provide ancillary evidence as to why this is the best course of action. So I you know, that's another video, but in VBMSR, it is literally a plug and play situation. There's very few times. Now, when it kicks it out all discombobulated, so the rater will have to go into the rating narrative once it's finished and then add in a lot of generalized text to make sure that all the theories of service connection that could apply to your contention were applied in the rating narrative. And this is where you'll see like a lot of your narratives are different from each other, is because part of the reason why they hired us was for our ability to write, which is laughable sometimes. But so that way we can integrate all of those in there. And some people have templates, so they will just copy and paste certain templates in there for say the Terra theory of service connection, the direct theory of service connection. But yeah, so that is the two parts of the rating decision, like how your rating is made. It has two different phases. And typically during the first phase, we know whether or not we're going to defer, what we're going to defer back if we need to defer anything back. And then once we pull it over to rating, then, I should say over to VBMSR, then we know what we are, then that kind of finalizes our actions. So once we're done, we then, all the conditions are done. Then we review it one final time. And once we're done reviewing it that one final time, we will, air quote, finalize our rating decision. And then we, as raters, also fill out that same workload management tool to kind of tell uh, the leadership that, hey, look, the rating that I'm doing is a partial rating. It will not get the RO any points. So then your rating goes over here. If that's the case, if it's a partial rating, it will go to the national work queue instantly, uh, and it will sit and wait until it is ready to randomly assign your claim to a different RO for it to be promulgated and authorized. If it is not, if it's a complete, we call it a complete rating, where there is no deferral, no additional development, then we catch it and we hold on to it because we want to get, as an RO, regional office, points for promulgation and authorization, hopefully doing the right thing and finalizing it right then and there. So that's about it for rating the Cool Kid Club. So If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, anything I can elaborate on for this video, I'm happy to. This is my bread and butter, so I'm trying to keep it under 20 minutes, but that seems to have right now not been possible. So, but that's about it. I'll do another video on authorization and promulgation. It will not be magical in any way, shape, or form because I honestly don't know what they do besides piss me off. But I will probably explain why they upset me so much. And yeah, that's about it. So thank you. Do all the stuff if you made it this far, and if you did, you have saintly patience. You know, like, subscribe, do all the fun YouTube things, and I will talk to you later. Raider out.